Before we dive in, please remember that this presentation is for informational and educational purposes only. The information provided is not intended to be a substitute for professional business, financial, or IT consulting. Every business situation is unique, and you should consult with qualified professionals before making any major technology or infrastructure decisions. This video does not constitute a recommendation for any specific cloud provider or service. Nearly every company in America is setting money on fire in the cloud. I'm not talking about a few percentage points here and there. A recent landmark study by Flexera found that businesses estimate they waste a staggering 32% of their cloud budget. Let that number sink in. For every $100,000 a company spends on cloud services, $32,000 might as well have been shredded. For a company with $1 million cloud budget, that's over $300,000 a year that just vanishes. It produces no value. It drives no innovation. It's a ghost tax paid for a single reason. A fundamental strategic mistake made right at the very beginning. That mistake is choosing the wrong tool for the job. It's the epic and often misunderstood battle between the public cloud and the private cloud. Now, this choice sounds deeply technical, like something you delegate to your IT department and hope for the best. But I'm here to tell you that this is one of the most critical business decisions you can make in the 21st century. It has profound consequences that ripple through your entire organization, your budget, your security posture, your compliance risk, and your fundamental ability to out-innovate your competition. Get it right, and you unlock explosive, scalable growth. Get it wrong, and you can quietly bleed your company dry with 1,000 tiny cuts on a monthly bill you don't even understand. So, in this video, we are going to pull back the curtain and demystify this choice once and for all. We're going to slice right through the marketing jargon from Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. By the end of this, you won't just know the textbook definitions. You will possess a powerful mental framework, a new way of seeing the problem, that will allow you to analyze your own needs and confidently determine which path is the right one for you. This knowledge can potentially save your organization tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars, all while protecting its most critical digital assets. To truly grasp this, let's forget about servers, data centers, and virtualization for a moment. Let's talk about something far more universal: finding a place to live. Imagine you need a new home for your family or your business. You have two primary options. Option 1 is to lease a space in a massive state-of-the-art apartment complex. It's run by a huge, globally recognized company. They have everything you could ever want on demand: a world-class gym, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, 24/7 armed security, and a concierge. If your faucet starts to leak, you don't buy a wrench. You make a phone call, and a maintenance person shows up to fix it. If you suddenly need more space, you can rent the adjacent apartment and knock down a wall. If your needs shrink, you can downsize your lease next year. You pay a simple monthly rent. You get all the benefits and amenities of a luxury home, without any of the crippling headaches of ownership. This is the public cloud. You are renting a slice of a massive, shared infrastructure owned and operated by a third-party giant like Amazon Web Services, AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform, GCP. You pay only for what you use, like a utility, and you can scale your usage up or down almost instantly. It's unbelievably convenient, it's lightning fast to get started, and it requires virtually zero upfront capital investment in physical hardware. Now let's look at option 2. Instead of renting, you decide to build your own custom house from the ground up. You buy the plot of land. You hire the architect to design a blueprint that is perfectly tailored to your exact needs. You choose every single material, from the rebar in the foundation to the specific brand of doorknobs on every door. You decide precisely where the walls go, how many electrical outlets are in each room, and what kind of commercial-grade security system you want to install. It is a massive upfront investment of time, planning, and money. And once it's built, you are responsible for everything. If the roof leaks in a storm, that's your problem to fix. If the power goes out, you need your own backup generator. But, and this is the critical part, it is 100% yours. You have absolute control, unparalleled privacy, and it is built precisely for your exact specifications, with no compromises. This is the private cloud. It's computing infrastructure that is dedicated entirely and exclusively to your organization. You own it, you manage it, and you control it completely. It might be physically located in your own on-site data center, or you might pay another company to host your private hardware in their facility. But the key principle remains: the servers, the storage, the network, it's all yours. No noisy neighbors, no shared resources. So, which is the better choice? The sleek, convenient, pay-as-you-go apartment in the sky, or the custom-built, secure, private fortress? The trillion-dollar public cloud companies will spend billions of dollars on advertising to convince you that the apartment, the public cloud, is always the superior answer. They'll dazzle you with terms like agility, digital transformation, and the end of capital expenditures. And for a huge number of businesses, they are absolutely right. If you're a startup launching a new mobile app, the public cloud is a gift from the heavens. You can go from a simple idea to a globally available service in a matter of hours with nothing more than a company credit card. You don't need to guess how many servers you'll need in 3 years and spend millions on hardware that might just sit there collecting dust. You get to tap into the exact same world-class infrastructure that powers giants like Netflix, a feat that would have been impossible just 15 years ago. The ability to rent a supercomputer for a few hours to run a complex financial model, and then turn it off the second it's done, is nothing short of revolutionary. It's pure, unadulterated utility computing. But here is the catch. Here is the part they don't exactly highlight in the glossy brochures. That predictable monthly rent for your cloud apartment? It's often anything but. It can be wildly, terrifyingly unpredictable. I spoke to a CTO of a mid-sized e-commerce company just last month. Their normal cloud bill was about $20,000. One month, a developer made a small configuration error, a single line of code that created an infinite loop, causing a data transfer process to run out of control. They didn't catch it for 48 hours. The next bill that arrived wasn't for $20,000. It was for $250,000. That's not an anomaly. Stories like this are terrifyingly common. Furthermore, you're living in a building with other tenants. Yes, the management company is fantastic, and the security is top-notch, but you are still sharing the building's core infrastructure. For many businesses, especially those in highly regulated industries like healthcare, finance, or defense, this shared model can be a non-starter. They have to comply with strict regulations like HIPAA or PCI DSS that dictate exactly where their data can live and who can possibly access it. Handing your most sensitive customer data over to a third party, even a trusted one like Amazon, to be stored on the same physical hardware that hosts 100 other companies, can be a compliance and security nightmare. This is where the custom-built house, the private cloud, suddenly looks incredibly appealing. With a private cloud, you know the exact physical location of your data. You control the security policies from the bare metal all the way up to the application. You can fine-tune the environment for the unique performance needs of your specific software. And while that upfront cost is high, once you've built the house, your ongoing costs become much more predictable and for stable long-term workloads, can be significantly lower than paying rent to a landlord forever. So the public cloud offers incredible speed and scalability, but at the risk of unpredictable costs and shared security concerns. The private cloud offers ultimate control and security, but with a massive upfront investment and management burden. It seems like a simple trade-off, right? Speed versus control. Operating expense versus capital expense. But this is where the real story begins, because that's the old way of thinking. The line between these two worlds is blurring every single day, and a new way of thinking is emerging that promises the best of both. The real difference isn't just about where the servers are. It's about a fundamental shift in how you view technology, as a simple rental utility or as a strategic owned asset. Understanding that distinction is the key to unlocking the immense power of the cloud, without falling into the budget traps that snare so many others. To do that, we first need to peel back the layers on the public cloud giants. What exactly are you getting when you sign up for AWS or Azure? And what are the hidden risks you absolutely need to be aware of before you swipe that credit card? So, when you swipe that credit card for a public cloud service, what are you actually buying? Forget the technical jargon for a second. Imagine you're not renting a server. You're checking into the world's largest, most technologically advanced, all-inclusive resort. This resort is so massive it has campuses in every major city on the planet. We're talking about the big three: Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. AWS is the original, the behemoth. It's like the resort that started it all and now offers everything imaginable. Want to go scuba diving? They have a service for that. Want to learn pottery? There's a service for that. Need to launch a satellite? Seriously, they have a service for that. They are the undisputed market leader, the default choice for millions, from a two-person startup in a garage to the CIA. Then there's Microsoft Azure. This is the 5-star corporate retreat wing of the resort. It's seamlessly connected to every other Microsoft product you can imagine. If your company already lives and breathes Microsoft Windows, Office 365, Teams, checking into Azure feels less like a vacation and more like a logical, comfortable extension of your own office. It's built for the enterprise, with deep integrations and a familiar feel for IT departments that have been running on Microsoft for decades. And finally, there's Google Cloud Platform, or GCP. This is the futuristic, high-tech R&D wing of the resort. It's where the brilliant engineers who built Google Search, YouTube, and Maps have opened up their internal tools for you to use. It's incredibly powerful, especially when it comes to data analytics, machine learning, and containerization. If you're trying to solve a problem that involves sifting through petabytes of data or building the next AI-powered revolution, you go to the Google Wing. No matter which one you choose, the initial appeal is almost intoxicatingly simple. This is the seductive promise of the public cloud. First, there's the incredible speed. In the old days, if your company needed a new server to launch a product, it was a whole ordeal. You'd have to get budget approval, order the hardware, wait weeks or months for it to arrive, rack it, stack it, install the operating system, and configure the network. It was a painful, capital-intensive process that could take a quarter or more. With the public cloud, you enter your credit card information, click a few buttons, and within minutes, you have a virtual server ready to go. A process that took months now takes less time than making a cup of coffee. This agility is not just a convenience. It is a fundamental competitive advantage. It's what allowed companies like Netflix and Airbnb to grow from tiny startups into global giants at a pace that was previously unimaginable. They didn't have to build data centers, they just rented capacity from the resort. The second promise is elasticity. Imagine your small e-commerce website is suddenly featured on a national morning show. In the old world, the flood of traffic would have instantly crashed your single server, and your moment in the spotlight would become a catastrophic failure. But in the public cloud resort, this is a solvable problem. You can configure your setup to automatically request more rooms, more servers, the instant it detects a surge in guests. As traffic spikes, your application seamlessly scales out, spreading the load across 10, 100, or even 1,000 servers. Then, when the traffic dies down, it automatically scales back in, releasing those extra rooms so you don't have to pay for them. This ability to expand and contract on demand is the elasticity they talk about, and it's a game changer. And that brings us to the third, and perhaps most seductive promise: cost. There's no massive upfront investment. You don't have to spend millions of dollars building a data center. You shift from a capital expenditure model, or CapEx, to an operational expenditure model, OpEx. It's like electricity or water. You just pay a monthly bill for what you used. For a startup with limited cash, this is a lifeline. It lowers the barrier to entry for starting a tech company to near zero. Speed, elasticity, and a pay-as-you-go model. It sounds perfect, right? It sounds like there's no downside. But this is where we need to look closer at the fine print on your resort bill. Because hidden within this paradise are some very real, very expensive risks that can turn your cloud dream into a financial nightmare. The first hidden risk is the cost snowball effect. That simple, pay-as-you-go model is a double-edged sword. While you don't pay for what you don't use, you pay for everything you do use, and I mean everything. The public cloud is a masterpiece of metered billing. You pay for the server per second. You pay for the storage per gigabyte. But you also pay for the amount of data that leaves their network. That's called egress. You pay for the number of requests you make to a database. You pay for load balancers, for IP addresses, for premium support. Each of these is a tiny line item, often fractions of a cent. But when you have millions of users and billions of requests, those fractions of a cent compound into a terrifying monthly bill. It's like a phone bill from the 90s with 1,000 microcharges you don't understand. I've seen companies get their first big taste of success, see their user base explode, and then get a cloud bill that's 10 times what they expected, threatening the very survival of their business. The cost model that was so helpful when they were small became a crushing weight as they grew. The second, and arguably more dangerous, risk is the vendor lock-in trap. The cloud providers are smart. They don't just offer you basic rooms or servers. They offer you incredible, unique amenities that you can only find at their resort. AWS has services like Lambda for serverless computing or DynamoDB for a high-performance database. Google has BigQuery for data warehousing. Azure has its own suite of proprietary tools. These services are amazing. They solve complex problems and allow your developers to build things faster and more efficiently. So you start using them. You build your application's foundation on top of these unique, proprietary services. And it works beautifully. But what you've inadvertently done is build your entire house with custom-sized bricks that only one company in the world sells. Now you are locked in. If that provider decides to raise their prices, you have to pay. If their service has an outage, your application goes down. If you want to move to another cloud provider or bring your application back in-house, you can't just pack up and leave. You have to completely re-architect and rebuild your application from the ground up using different tools. The cost and complexity of such a migration can be so astronomical that it's practically impossible. You are now a permanent guest at their resort, and they set the prices. The third risk is what's known as the noisy neighbor problem. Remember, the public cloud is a multi-tenant environment. You're sharing the underlying physical hardware with hundreds, maybe thousands of other companies. The cloud provider uses a technology called a hypervisor to slice up a massive physical server into smaller virtual machines, your rooms. While the isolation technology is incredibly advanced, it's not perfect. If another company on the same physical piece of silicon as you, your neighbor, is running a massive resource-intensive process, it can sometimes impact the performance of your application. Your website might feel a little sluggish, your database queries might take a few milliseconds longer. For most applications, this is unnoticeable. But if you're running a high-frequency trading platform or a real-time bidding engine where every millisecond counts, this performance volatility can be a deal-breaker. You don't control the physical box, so you have no way to kick out the noisy neighbor having a party next door. Finally, there is the security and compliance maze. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about the public cloud. There's a belief that by moving to a major provider like AWS or Azure, you are outsourcing your security. That is dangerously false. All public cloud providers operate on what they call a shared responsibility model. Think of it like renting a high-security bank vault. The bank is responsible for the security of the vault, the thick steel walls, the armed guards, the surveillance cameras. That's the cloud provider. They secure the physical data centers, the hardware, the network, and the core virtualization software. But you are responsible for what you put in your vault and whether you lock the door. That means you are responsible for securing your own data, managing who has access, configuring your firewalls correctly, and patching your own operating systems. The vast majority of cloud-based data breaches are not because a hacker broke into Amazon's data center. They happen because a customer misconfigured a setting, leaving a storage bucket full of sensitive data open to the public internet for anyone to see. The tools for security are there, but the responsibility to use them correctly is entirely on you. It's a complex and unforgiving landscape, so you've got skyrocketing costs, you're handcuffed to a single vendor, your performance is at the mercy of strangers, and you're navigating a minefield of security responsibilities. It sounds like a nightmare, but what if there was a way to get the power and flexibility of the cloud but on your own terms? What if you could build your own fortress with your own rules, your own security, and a predictable, stable cost? That's the promise of the private cloud. But is it just for giant corporations with bottomless budgets? Or is it a realistic option for you? And what does it really take to build one? The answer might surprise you. Let's start with the surprise. The surprise isn't that building a private cloud is expensive. Everyone expects that. The real surprise is that you're not just buying technology. You're buying a new job. A whole set of jobs, actually. You're becoming a general contractor, a building superintendent, a security chief, and a power company, all rolled into one. It's a fundamental shift from being a tenant to being a landlord. Imagine you've decided to stop renting an apartment and build your own custom house from the ground up. The public cloud is that fully furnished, all utilities included luxury apartment. The private cloud is you, standing on an empty plot of land with a blueprint and a checkbook. First, you need the land itself. In the tech world, this is the data center. This isn't your spare office or a dusty server closet. We're talking about a purpose-built room with specialized, redundant power coming in from the grid. We're talking about massive independent generators and battery backup systems, uninterruptible power supplies or UPS, that can keep everything running for hours or even days if the entire city goes dark. Then there's the cooling. A room full of high-powered servers generates an astonishing amount of heat. We're not talking about opening a window. We're talking about industrial-grade air conditioning systems, meticulously designed for airflow, with hot aisles and cold aisles to efficiently whisk away heat. Walking into a proper data center feels like stepping into a walk-in freezer in the middle of a wind tunnel. That constant, bone-chilling hum? That's the sound of your money keeping your investment from literally melting. And security, physical security. We're talking reinforced walls, biometric scanners, keycard access logs, 24/7 video surveillance, and maybe even a security guard at the door. You are now the sole guardian of your company's most precious asset. So you've got your land. Now you have to build the house. This is the hardware. It's the servers, the powerful computers that do the actual thinking. It's the storage arrays, vast banks of hard drives or super-fast solid-state drives that hold all your data. And it's the networking gear, the switches, routers, and firewalls that act as the nervous system, connecting everything together into the outside world. This isn't a trip to Best Buy. You're buying enterprise-grade equipment from companies like Dell, HP, or Cisco. And you're not buying one of anything. You're buying at least 2 of everything for redundancy. 2 core network switches, 2 main storage controllers, multiple power supplies in every server. Because if one fails, and it will fail, the other has to take over instantly without anyone noticing. This is a massive upfront capital expenditure. You write a very large check before you've even served a single web page or processed a single transaction. Okay, the house is built. You have a foundation, walls, and a roof. But you can't live in it yet. You need the plumbing and the electrical wiring. This is the virtualization layer. This is the software magic that turns your big pile of expensive hardware into a flexible, usable cloud. The key component here is called a hypervisor. You've probably heard of the biggest player, VMware, or maybe Microsoft's Hyper-V. The hypervisor is what lets you slice and dice a single giant powerful physical server into dozens of smaller, independent virtual machines. It's the digital drywall that lets you create many different rooms inside your big hardware house. This layer is what allows you to pool all your computing power, all your storage, and all your networking, and then dish it out on demand just like a public cloud provider does. This software isn't free. It comes with significant licensing costs and requires specialized expertise to install and manage. Now, finally, you can add the furniture and appliances. This is the orchestration and automation layer. This is the software that gives you the pretty web dashboard. It's the self-service portal that lets your developers spin up a new virtual server with a few clicks, instead of having to file a ticket and wait 3 weeks. It's the software that automates all the complex background tasks, making it feel like a cloud. This layer is what separates a simple virtualized data center from a true private cloud. So you've done it. You've built your house. The lights are on, the water is running. But now, you have to live in it and maintain it forever. A hard drive fails at 3 a.m. on a Saturday. Guess who gets the automated alert and has to drive to the data center to replace it? You do. A critical security patch for your hypervisor is released because of a major vulnerability. Guess who has to plan the maintenance window, carefully migrate all the virtual machines, and apply the patch without causing any downtime? You do. Your network switch starts acting flaky, causing intermittent connection drops for your customers. Guess who has to troubleshoot that complex mess? You guessed it. You are now responsible for the entire stack, from the physical power plug in the wall all the way up to the application software. You need a team of highly skilled and highly paid experts. Network engineers, storage administrators, virtualization specialists, security analysts. These are the people who keep the lights on. The public cloud has armies of these people. In a private cloud, that army is you. And the hardware you bought has a lifespan. That state-of-the-art server you bought today will be considered slow and inefficient in 3 to 5 years. You are in a constant cycle of planning, purchasing, and replacing equipment. It's not a one-time cost. It's a perpetual mortgage on your technology. After hearing all that, you might be thinking, why on earth would anyone do this? It sounds like a nightmare. But for the right organization, it's not just the best option. It's the only option. Think about a major bank. They operate under incredibly strict regulations about how customer financial data is stored and protected. They need to be able to prove to auditors exactly which physical server a piece of data lives on. They need absolute, granular control over their security policies. Handing that data over to a third party, even a trusted one like Amazon, might introduce a level of risk or regulatory complexity they simply cannot accept. For them, control isn't a feature. It's a requirement for existence. Or think about a pharmaceutical company doing complex genetic sequencing. Their computations are massive and can run for weeks. They need every last drop of performance from their hardware. They can't afford a noisy neighbor, another customer on the same public cloud hardware, suddenly consuming a ton of resources and slowing down their critical research. In a private cloud, all the performance is theirs and only theirs. It's predictable, dedicated, and guaranteed. Finally, consider a company with a very stable, predictable workload that runs 24/7/365. A large e-commerce site, for example. In the public cloud, they're paying for that computing power by the hour. Every hour of every day forever. After a few years, the math can start to change. The cumulative operational cost of renting in the public cloud might actually exceed the cost of buying and managing their own equipment. For them, a private cloud becomes the more cost-effective choice in the long run. Now, there is a middle ground. The idea of managing a physical data center is daunting for most. So a popular model has emerged: the hosted private cloud or colocation. In this model, you still buy and own all your servers, storage, and networking gear. But you rent rack space in a professional, third-party data center. They handle the physical building, the power, the cooling, and the security. You just bring your equipment. It's like buying a prefabricated home and having it dropped onto a fully prepared lot. You're still the landlord of your tech, but you've outsourced the job of being the building superintendent. The private cloud, then, is a fortress. It's built for control, for performance, and for predictability. It requires a massive upfront investment, a deep well of expertise, and an ongoing commitment to maintenance and upgrades. It's a deliberate strategic choice made by organizations for whom the standard one-size-fits-all model just won't cut it. So, if building a private cloud is like meticulously constructing your own private fortress, what does that make the public cloud? Is it a sprawling global metropolis where you can rent a penthouse on a moment's notice? Or is it something else entirely? The scale of what the public cloud giants have built is almost impossible to comprehend, and it changes everything. It changes everything because the public cloud isn't just a bigger, better data center. It's a fundamental shift in what a computer even is. It's the abstraction of computing power into a global utility, as accessible and reliable as the electricity from your wall socket. You don't own the power plant. You just plug in and pay for what you use. The public cloud is the power plant for the entire digital world. And when we talk about this global metropolis, we're really talking about an empire built by three colossal titans: Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. These aren't just tech companies. They are nation-states of data. Amazon, the pioneer, stumbled into this almost by accident. In the early 2000s, they got incredibly good at building massive, efficient, scalable infrastructure to run their own sprawling e-commerce site. Then they had a revolutionary thought. What if we rented out our excess capacity? What if we sold our internal expertise as a service? In 2006, they launched AWS, and in doing so, they invented the modern cloud computing industry. They are the grizzled veterans, the ones who drew the maps and built the first roads in this new world. Then came Microsoft. They saw the tidal wave AWS had created and realized their entire enterprise software empire was at risk. They couldn't just sell Windows Server licenses to companies that were no longer buying servers. So they went all in. Leveraging their deep relationships with virtually every corporation on the planet, they built Azure. It became the trusted bridge for big business to move from the old world of on-premise servers to the new world of the cloud. They are the calculated strategic powerhouse, the diplomat that speaks the language of the Fortune 500. And of course, there's Google. For years, Google had been running its own planet-spanning infrastructure to power search, Gmail, and YouTube. The sheer scale of data they processed and organized was, and still is, mind-boggling. Their entry, Google Cloud, came to the market with a different pedigree. They are the brilliant scientists, the masters of data, analytics, and artificial intelligence, offering the very tools they used to build their own digital empire. These three giants are locked in a perpetual multi-hundred-billion-dollar arms race. They are laying down submarine fiber optic cables across oceans, carving data centers into the sides of mountains, and filling entire deserts with solar panels just to power it all. The scale is a weapon, and the services they offer on top of this infrastructure are the real magic. This is where people get lost in the jargon, but it's actually simple if you think about it, like building a business online. You have three basic ways to use the public cloud, which are known as service models. First, there's infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. This is the most fundamental level. Imagine you want to build a house. With IaaS, the cloud provider gives you a plot of land, the raw materials, lumber, concrete, pipes, wires, and the heavy machinery. That's it. You have to design the blueprint, pour the foundation, frame the walls, and run the electricity yourself. In the digital world, this means they give you the raw virtual servers, the raw storage, and the raw networking. You have maximum control, but you also have maximum responsibility. You have to install the operating system, manage security patches, configure the firewalls, everything. It's powerful, but it's a lot of work. But what if you don't want to be a general contractor? What if you just want to focus on the interior design? That brings us to the next level, platform as a service or PaaS. In our house analogy, this is like buying a pre-built home in a new development. The foundation, the structure, the plumbing, and the electricity are all done. It's a finished, functional house. You just get to come in, paint the walls whatever color you want, choose the furniture, and hang the art. You don't worry about the roof leaking or the foundation cracking. The developer handles that. In the cloud, this means the provider manages the servers, the operating systems, the databases, and all the underlying plumbing. You just bring your application code, your unique business logic, and you deploy it. You focus on building your app, not the infrastructure it runs on. This drastically speeds up development. Finally, what if you don't want to build or design a house at all? You just want to live in one. That's software as a service or SaaS. This is simply ordering a fully furnished, all bills paid apartment. You just show up with your suitcase and move in. The electricity works, the internet is on, the furniture is there. You don't manage anything. You just use the service. You're already using dozens of SaaS applications every single day. Gmail, Dropbox, Salesforce, Netflix, Slack. You don't manage the email servers or the video streaming infrastructure. You just log in and use the software. It's the highest level of abstraction, delivering a finished product directly to the user. IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. Renting the raw materials, buying a pre-built house, or moving into a furnished apartment. This is the menu of options the public cloud offers. But why did this model take over the world? It comes down to two superpowers that private clouds could never truly match: true elasticity and the complete transformation of cost. Let's talk about elasticity. Imagine you run an e-commerce website. For 364 days a year, you get 1,000 visitors a day. Your private server in the back office handles it just fine. But then it's Black Friday. And suddenly, you don't have 1,000 visitors, you have 1 million visitors hitting your site in a single hour. Your private server doesn't just slow down. It melts. Catches fire. Your website is down and you've lost the biggest sales day of the year. Now, imagine this on the public cloud. You've set up auto-scaling. The moment your traffic starts to spike, the cloud platform automatically, in seconds, spins up 10, 100, 1,000 more virtual servers to handle the load. Your website stays fast and responsive for every single customer. Then, when the rush is over, it automatically scales back down and you stop paying for all those extra servers. This ability to expand and contract on demand like a breathing organism is elasticity. It's a superpower. You pay only for what you use precisely when you use it. You can handle a Super Bowl ad traffic spike without blinking. This leads to the second superpower: the economic revolution of shifting from capital expenditures, or CapEx, to operational expenditures, or OpEx. In the old world, if you wanted to start a tech company, you had to go to investors and ask for millions of dollars before you wrote a single line of code. You needed that money to buy servers, storage arrays, networking gear, and to hire people to rack it, stack it, and maintain it. It was a massive, risky, upfront capital investment. The public cloud completely obliterates that model. There is no upfront investment. It's a pay-as-you-go utility. You want to spin up a supercomputer to run an AI model for a few hours? It might cost you $50. When you're done, you turn it off and the billing stops. This change from CapEx to OpEx democratized innovation. It meant a couple of college kids in a dorm room suddenly had access to the exact same world-class, planet-spanning infrastructure as a company like General Electric. The barrier to entry for starting a business and competing on a global scale didn't just get lowered, it was vaporized. This is an empire built on agility, a kingdom of speed. The titans, AWS, Azure, and Google, are not just renting out servers. They are in a constant war of innovation, releasing hundreds of new services and features every year. Cutting-edge databases, serverless computing, quantum computing simulators, global content delivery networks, sophisticated AI and machine learning platforms that can analyze images, transcribe audio, and predict customer behavior. This entire arsenal of futuristic technology is available to anyone with a credit card, on demand through an API. You aren't just renting a server. You are renting an entire R&D department from the most advanced technology companies in human history. It's an incredible proposition. Limitless scale, pay-as-you-go pricing, and an ever-expanding toolbox of futuristic technology. Sounds perfect. Almost too perfect. You're handing over the keys to your entire digital business to one of these titans. You're building your house, your factory, your entire livelihood inside their metropolis. But what happens when the landlord decides to raise the rent? What happens when the city's rules change? What are the hidden costs and the terrifying risks of living in someone else's empire? This is the fundamental question of renting versus owning, but scaled to a level that can make or break a global enterprise. Let's start with the most obvious one, the rent. The public cloud's greatest sales pitch is its pay-as-you-go model. Feels like freedom. You only pay for what you use. Need more power for Black Friday? Just turn the dial, pay a bit more, and turn it back down on Monday. It's brilliant. But this flexibility is a double-edged sword, and the other edge is razor sharp. The bill you get at the end of the month is not a simple, flat fee. It's a labyrinthine document, hundreds of pages long, detailing every single API call, every gigabyte transferred, every second of compute time across dozens of services. It's a puzzle designed by accountants for accountants. And for many companies, it's a monthly heart attack. They budget for $10,000 and get a bill for $50,000. They budget for $100,000 and get a bill for $500,000. Why? Because a developer forgot to turn off a test environment. Or a new feature accidentally made 10 times more database calls than intended. Or a minor bug caused a logging service to write petabytes of useless data. In the public cloud, a single line of bad code can be the most expensive mistake your company has ever made. It's not like in your own data center where a runaway process just makes a server fan spin faster. Here, it silently rings up a bill that could bankrupt you. And this isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature. The system is designed to make it incredibly easy to spend money and incredibly difficult to track that spending in real time. The landlord doesn't knock on your door to say, "Hey, you left the water on, and it's costing you $1,000 an hour." They just send you the bill after you've already flooded the building. But let's say you're a perfect tenant. You're meticulous. You track everything. You're still not safe. Because the landlord can and will raise the rent. Cloud providers change their pricing models. They introduce new, more expensive tiers of service and subtly encourage you to upgrade. The cost of a virtual machine might stay the same for 5 years, but the cost of the networking, the storage, the managed databases, all the little things that actually make your application work creeps up year after year. It's a slow boil. You don't notice it at first, a few percent here, a few percent there. But after 5 years, you look at your expenses and realize you're paying double what you started for the exact same service, and you have no idea how it happened. This leads us to the most insidious cost of all, the one that doesn't appear on any bill. It's the cost of leaving. This is called vendor lock-in, and it is the public cloud's golden handcuffs. When you build your business in their metropolis, you don't just use their electricity and water. You use their special plumbing, their proprietary elevators, their unique security systems. You build your applications using Amazon's DynamoDB, or Google's BigQuery, or Microsoft's Azure Cosmos DB. These are powerful, amazing tools that let you build incredible things faster than ever before. But they are also walls. Every line of code you write that uses one of these proprietary services is another brick in the wall of your prison. A beautiful, comfortable, gilded cage. Trying to move your application from one cloud provider to another, or back to your own private infrastructure, is not like moving houses. It's like trying to surgically remove your factory from the city's foundation while it's still running, and then rebuilding it from scratch in a new city that speaks a different language. It can take years. It can cost millions of dollars in engineering effort. For many companies, it's simply impossible. They are locked in, forever. And the cloud providers know this. They bank on it. This is why they are so desperate to get you to use their high-level, managed platform-as-a-service offerings. They're not just renting you a server. They're trying to become the central nervous system of your entire business. Once they know you can't leave, the power dynamic shifts entirely. This is where the truly terrifying costs emerge. The most famous of these is the egress fee. Egress is just a fancy word for getting your data out. Let's say you have a petabyte of customer data stored in the cloud. It's your data. You own it. Now you want to move it to a competitor or back to your own servers. The cloud provider will charge you an astronomical fee for the privilege of accessing your own information. Think about that. It costs next to nothing to put data into the cloud. They'll practically roll out the red carpet for you. But if you want to take it out, they hit you with a bill that can run into the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's the ultimate roach motel. Data checks in, but it doesn't check out. This isn't a technical limitation. It is a business model. It is a punitive tax designed for one purpose: to keep you from leaving. It's the landlord changing the locks and charging you a fortune for the key to your own apartment. Then there are the changing city rules. Public cloud providers are innovators. They're constantly releasing new services and updating old ones. But they also discontinue them. Imagine building a critical part of your business on a specific service, only to get an email one day saying it will be deprecated in 12 months. That's a death sentence. You now have 1 year to re-architect your entire system, a project you never planned for, all because your landlord decided to demolish a wing of the building. This isn't a hypothetical. The Google graveyard is a famous running joke in the tech industry, a list of hundreds of popular products and services that Google has unceremoniously killed, often leaving millions of users and businesses scrambling. When you build on their platform, you are betting your company that they won't change the rules of the game. You're a guest in their house, and they can redecorate whenever they want. Finally, we have the biggest risk of all, the citywide blackout. When a public cloud region goes down, it's not just one company that suffers. It's thousands. It's a cascading failure that can take down banks, airlines, streaming services, and even your smart doorbell, all at once. And in that moment, you are completely, utterly powerless. You can't go reboot a server. You can't call your network engineer. All you can do is stare at a status page, frantically hitting refresh, while your business bleeds money and your customers scream at you on social media. When the service is finally restored hours or even days later, what do you get? An apology. And maybe, if you're lucky, a service credit for a few $100s. That credit is a slap in the face. It doesn't cover the millions in lost revenue. It doesn't cover the permanent damage to your brand's reputation. It doesn't bring back the customers who left for a competitor, who happened to be hosted in a different cloud region that stayed online. You accepted the risk of renting, and you just experienced the downside. You put your entire livelihood inside someone else's empire, and the empire crumbled, taking you with it. So if the public cloud is a landlord that can unpredictably raise your rent, lock you in a gilded cage, hold your data hostage, and suffer catastrophic failures that you have no control over, why on earth would anyone choose this? Why wouldn't every sane business on the planet just build their own fortress, their own private cloud? Well, because building your own empire is a whole different kind of war. It starts with a beautiful, seductive idea, the idea of total control, a digital kingdom where you are the sole monarch. Every server, every switch, every line of code answers to you and you alone. No noisy neighbors, no shared walls, no landlord changing the rules without your permission. You build the fortress, you design the defenses, you hold the only key. It's a fortress of solitude for your company's most precious asset. It's data. This is the promise of the private cloud. And in a world of constant digital threats and unpredictable service outages, it sounds like the ultimate safe harbor. Sounds like sanity. But building an empire, a real one, is never as clean as it looks on a map. It's a brutal, expensive, and unforgiving business. And the first bill that comes due is the one for the land itself. Before you can write a single line of code or serve a single web page, you have to acquire the physical foundation. And that means capital expenditure. A tidal wave of it. We're talking about servers. And not just a few. Racks upon racks of them. High-density blade servers that hum with power. Think of it this way. Buying a server for your private cloud isn't like buying a new laptop at Best Buy. It's like commissioning a Formula One car. It's a piece of high-performance, purpose-built machinery. And you don't just need one, you need a whole fleet. You need servers for computing, servers for databases, servers for web traffic. Then you need storage. Massive enterprise-grade storage area networks, or SANs. These aren't just big hard drives. They are incredibly complex systems designed for mind-bending speed and redundancy, ensuring that if one disk fails or 10 disks fail, your data is still safe. This is the royal treasury, the vault where you keep the crown jewels. And the price tag reflects that. We're talking hundreds of thousands, often millions of dollars just for the boxes that hold your data. And all of this equipment needs to talk to each other. So now you need the nervous system of your kingdom. The network. Enterprise-grade switches that can handle terabits of data per second. Routers to connect everything. Firewalls, dozens of them, to stand guard at the perimeter. Load balancers to direct traffic intelligently. This isn't the little Wi-Fi router you have at home. This is the communications grid for a digital city, and it costs as much to build. So you've spent millions on the hardware. Where do you put it? You can't just stack it in a spare office. This gear is loud, it generates a phenomenal amount of heat, and it consumes a terrifying amount of power. You need a data center, a specialized facility with reinforced floors to handle the sheer weight of all those racks. You need a cooling system that's more complex than the HVAC for a skyscraper, with hot aisles and cold aisles precision engineered to keep your multi-million-dollar investment from literally melting. You need a power system with uninterruptible power supplies, essentially massive batteries, that can kick in the millisecond the grid flickers. And behind those, you need colossal diesel generators, ready to power your entire operation for days if there's a blackout. And we haven't even mentioned the physical security. We're talking man-traps, biometric scanners, 24/7 surveillance, and security guards. You're not just building an office, you're building a bunker. And after all of that, after you've bought the land, built the fortress, and filled it with your high-tech army, you still have to pay for the operating licenses, the software that makes it all a cloud in the first place, the virtualization layer from companies like VMware or Microsoft, the operating systems for every server, the management and orchestration software that gives you that single pane of glass to control your kingdom. Each of these comes with its own hefty, often recurring licensing fee. You've built the empire, and now you have to pay taxes to a dozen other kings just to keep it running. This initial cash outlay, this capital expenditure, is a mountain so high that it stops most companies dead in their tracks. But let's say you're a big company. You have deep pockets. You sign the checks, you build the data center, you cut the ribbon. The war isn't over. It has just begun. Because now you have to fight the long, grueling day-to-day battle of operating it. This is the part that's far less glamorous and far more expensive over the long run, the operational expenditure. A fortress needs an army, and a private cloud needs a highly specialized, very expensive army of engineers. You need network engineers who live and breathe Cisco and Juniper. You need storage administrators who can tame the complexities of your multi-million-dollar SAN. You need virtualization experts who understand the arcane arts of hypervisors and virtual machines. You need database administrators, security analysts, systems administrators for both Linux and Windows. This isn't a job for one IT guy. This is a platoon of specialists, each a master of their domain, and you are paying their salaries, their benefits, their training 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Because your cloud can't take a holiday. And what is this army doing all day? They are fighting a relentless war against decay and chaos. Hardware fails. It's not a question of if, but when. A power supply will blow. A memory module will die. A hard drive will crash. And your team has to be there to replace it, often in the middle of a Sunday night. Software needs to be patched. Constantly. Every week, vendors release a flood of security patches for newly discovered vulnerabilities, and your team has to test them, schedule downtime, and deploy them across your entire fleet without breaking anything. It's a high-wire act performed weekly, and all the while the clock is ticking. That state-of-the-art server you bought? In 3 to 5 years it's a relic. It's out of warranty, it's inefficient, and it can't run the latest software. So you have to go through the entire gut-wrenching procurement process all over again. This cycle of refreshing your hardware, this constant churn of replacing the old with the new, never, ever ends. It's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you finish, it's time to start over at the beginning. And let's talk about the electricity bill. The sheer, unadulterated cost of power and cooling for a data center is staggering. These facilities consume energy on an industrial scale. We are talking about utility bills that can run into the hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars per month. It is a financial black hole that never stops pulling money in. But perhaps the most insidious challenge of the private cloud isn't the cost. It's the speed, or rather, the lack of it. A private cloud is a supertanker. It's powerful, it's immense, but it turns with agonizing slowness. Imagine your marketing team has a brilliant idea for a new campaign that could generate millions in revenue. They need 20 new servers to handle the expected traffic. They come to your IT team excited, and your team says, "Great idea, we'll get right on it." Then they start the process. First, they need to spec out the servers. Then they need to get budget approval, which can take weeks of meetings. Then it goes to procurement, who spends a month negotiating with vendors to get the best price. Then you issue a purchase order. The vendor takes a few weeks to build and ship the servers. They arrive on a pallet. Your team has to unbox them, rack them in the data center, run power and network cables, install the operating system, configure the software, and integrate them into the existing environment. Best case scenario? That brilliant idea the marketing team had 2 months ago might have its servers ready in 3. By which time the market opportunity might have vanished completely. In the public cloud, getting 20 new servers is a matter of a few clicks and a few minutes. In the private cloud, it's a multi-month marathon. This lack of agility can be a death sentence in a fast-moving market, and it forces you to become a fortune teller. You have to guess what your company will need years in advance. So you play a dangerous game. Do you over-provision? Do you buy way more capacity than you need right now, just in case? If you do, you've just wasted millions of dollars on hardware that is sitting idle, consuming power and taking up space while its warranty clock ticks down. Or do you under-provision? Do you try to save money by buying only what you need today? If you do that, and your company has a sudden success, your app goes viral, your product is featured on the news, your systems will be overwhelmed. Websites crash, orders are lost, and customers leave in frustration. You've snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. This is the reality of building your own empire. It's a commitment not just to buying technology, but to getting into the data center business. It's a constant, capital-intensive, and complex war fought on multiple fronts. Against hardware failure, security threats, obsolescence, and the simple, relentless passage of time. It offers the illusion of ultimate control, but the price of that control is a vortex of cost and complexity that few can truly afford. Now let's flip the coin. If the private cloud is a kingdom you must build and defend from the ground up, the public cloud is like tapping into a global empire's established infrastructure. It's the difference between building your own power plant to keep the lights on in your house versus simply plugging into the national grid. One is a monumental, all-consuming task. The other is a utility. You just pay for what you use. This is the fundamental promise of the public cloud, championed by the titans of our age: Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. These companies looked at the immense, repetitive, and mind-numbingly complex work that every single organization was doing just to keep their servers running. The racking and stacking, the cooling, the power management, the network cabling, the security patching, and they said, "This is madness." This is what Amazon CTO Werner Vogels famously calls undifferentiated heavy lifting. It's work that has to be done, but it doesn't make your product any better. It doesn't make your customer service friendlier. It doesn't make your brand more recognizable. It's a tax you pay just to exist in the digital world. So they decided to do it for everyone. They built data centers on a scale that defies imagination. Buildings the size of multiple football fields, located all over the globe, connected by private, transoceanic fiber optic cables. They staffed them with the world's best engineers and security experts. They automated everything. And then they turned around and offered access to this incredible machine to anyone with a credit card. The first and perhaps most profound revolution this created was the abolition of massive upfront costs. In the old world of private clouds and on-premise data centers, if you had an idea for a new application, your first step wasn't writing code. It was writing a check. A very, very big check. You had to go through a painful process called capacity planning. You'd try to guess how many users you might have in 3 to 5 years, and then you buy enough servers, storage, and networking gear to handle that peak imaginary load. This is a capital expenditure, or CapEx. It's a huge, risky bet on the future. If you guess too low, your service crashes the moment it becomes popular. If you guess too high, you've just lit millions of dollars on fire, buying expensive hardware that sits in a rack, gathering dust and depreciating faster than a new car. The public cloud completely inverts this model. It shifts the entire financial equation from capital expenditure to operational expenditure, or OpEx. You don't buy anything. You rent. You need a server for an hour? You pay for an hour. You need a petabyte of storage for a month? You pay for that month. There is no 5-year guess. There is no multi-million-dollar check. You can spin up a global-scale application with the same credit card you used to buy a coffee. This single shift democratized entrepreneurship. It meant that a couple of developers in a garage could suddenly access the same raw computing power as a Fortune 500 company, allowing them to compete on the quality of their ideas, not the size of their bank account. But the financial benefit is only the beginning. The true magic of the public cloud is a concept called elasticity. Let's go back to our private cloud kingdom. You've built your walls and provisioned your army of servers based on your best guess of future traffic. Now, imagine your product gets featured on Good Morning America. Suddenly, a fire hose of 100 million people is pointed at your website. Your servers, designed for a gentle stream, are instantly overwhelmed. They melt. Your website goes down. Your moment in the sun, the single biggest opportunity your business has ever had, is gone. You failed because you succeeded too quickly. In the public cloud, this scenario plays out completely differently. You've configured your application to be elastic. As the first wave of traffic hits, the cloud platform sees the load increasing. Instantly, automatically, it begins to provision more servers. 10, then 100, then 1,000. The system expands in real time, like a balloon inflating, to perfectly match the demand. Your website stays fast and responsive for every single one of those 100 million visitors. Then, as the traffic subsides, the cloud automatically scales back down, decommissioning those extra servers so you're not paying for them. You only paid for the power you needed exactly when you needed it. This isn't just a feature. It's a superpower. It's the ability to command an almost infinite supply of resources on a moment's notice, and then release them just as quickly. This leads to the third and most strategic advantage of the public cloud: the relentless pace of innovation. The big three cloud providers are locked in a brutal war for market share. Their battleground is not just price. It's the sheer breadth and depth of the services they offer. Every single year, they release thousands of new features and services. We're not just talking about better virtual servers or cheaper storage. We're talking about entire platforms for machine learning and artificial intelligence, global databases that can survive a regional outage without a second of downtime, quantum computing environments, and sophisticated serverless technologies that let you run code without ever thinking about a server again. For a company running a private cloud, this is an impossible treadmill to keep up with. To build your own machine learning platform would require a team of PhDs and years of development. In the public cloud, it's an API call. It's a service you can start using this afternoon. You are effectively outsourcing your research and development budget to companies with the deepest pockets and the brightest minds on the planet. You are plugging your business directly into their innovation engine. You stop worrying about how to build the plumbing and start focusing on what amazing things you can do now that the plumbing is handled by someone else. So when we talk about losing control by moving to the public cloud, we have to ask, what control are we actually giving up? Are you giving up the control to choose which brand of hard drive to buy? Yes. Are you giving up the control to manage the temperature in your server room? Absolutely. Are you giving up the control to be woken up at 3 a.m. because a network switch failed and you're the only one who knows how to fix it? Thankfully, yes. You are trading the burden of managing infrastructure for the freedom to build your business. The public cloud proposes that the things you thought were core to your IT strategy, the servers, the racks, the blinking lights, were never the point. They were a distraction. The real value is always in the application, the data, and the customer experience. By abstracting away the hardware, the public cloud doesn't take away your control. It refocuses it on what truly matters. And what truly matters isn't the server rack, it's the race. The race to the next feature, the next market, the next customer. Let's make this concrete, because this is where the theoretical debate meets the brutal reality of the marketplace. Imagine two companies, both brilliant, both hungry for the same prize. For our story, let's call them Innovate Corp and Legacy Sys. They both operate in the hyper-competitive world of AI-driven data analytics. They have similar products, similar talent, and they're chasing the same enterprise clients. For years, they've been neck and neck. Legacy Sys is a believer in the private cloud. They've invested tens of millions of dollars into a state-of-the-art data center. They have complete control, top-tier security, and a team of brilliant engineers who know every switch and every server like the back of their hand. Their infrastructure is a fortress, predictable and powerful. Innovate Corp, on the other hand, was born in the public cloud. They own 0 servers. Their entire operation runs on AWS. They see infrastructure as a utility like electricity. They don't want to build the power plant. They just want to flip the switch and have the lights come on. One Monday morning, the world changes. A breakthrough research paper is published, detailing a revolutionary new machine learning model that is 10 times more efficient at processing unstructured data. It's a game changer. The first company to integrate this model into their platform and offer it to clients will capture the entire market. The race is on. At Legacy Sys, the emergency meeting is called. The head of engineering is ecstatic. "We can do this," she says. "But the new model requires a massive amount of GPU processing power. We'll need to order at least 500 new high-end NVIDIA H100 servers." The room goes quiet. The CFO starts doing math in his head. That's a $20 million unbudgeted capital expenditure. The process begins. First, they need board approval. That takes a week of presentations and financial modeling. Then the procurement team gets involved. They have to get quotes, negotiate with vendors. But there's a global chip shortage. The lead time on those specific GPUs is 16 weeks. 16 weeks. An eternity. The engineers, some of the brightest minds in the industry, are now stuck in planning meetings, filling out purchase orders, and coordinating with the facilities team to figure out power and cooling requirements for the new racks. Their focus is internal on logistics. They are preparing the battlefield, but the war has already started somewhere else. Now let's look at Innovate Corp. The same Monday morning, their head of engineering reads the same paper. Instead of calling a meeting with the CFO, she calls a meeting with her top 3 developers. They huddle around a whiteboard. By lunchtime, they have a plan. They don't need to buy anything. They go to the AWS console. They see that AWS has already made instances with the latest NVIDIA H100 GPUs available on demand. They spin up a test cluster of 10 servers in about 15 minutes. The cost? A few $100s an hour. By the end of the day, they've ported the new model and are running their first benchmarks. It works. It's even better than they hoped. By Wednesday, they've scaled their cluster to 1,000 GPUs. Not for a week, not for a month. Just for the 72 hours they need to retrain their core customer datasets on the new model. Their best engineers aren't talking about cooling systems. They're writing code, optimizing algorithms, and designing the new customer-facing API. Their entire focus is external, on the product, on the customer, on winning the race. On Friday, less than 5 days after the research paper was published, Innovate Corp issues a press release. They announce a new suite of tools, powered by the breakthrough model. They offer a free trial to their existing customers. The response is overwhelming. They sign 3 multi-million-dollar contracts before the weekend is over. Meanwhile, over at LegacySys, they've just gotten the final approval for their $20 million purchase order. Their servers won't even arrive for another 3.5 months. By the time their new hardware is racked, stacked, and configured, Innovate Corp will have not only captured the market, but they'll be working on the next big thing. What happened here? LegacySys wasn't less intelligent. Their engineers weren't less skilled. They were trapped. They were trapped by the physics of their own infrastructure. Their decision-making, their speed of innovation, was tethered to the speed of supply chains and capital budget approvals. They built a fortress, but in doing so, they built their own prison. The very control they prized became their anchor, weighing them down while their competitor sailed away on the digital ocean. This isn't just about speed. It's about the allocation of your single most valuable resource, human brainpower. At LegacySys, brilliant, expensive engineers spent months on a project that generated 0 customer value. They were working on plumbing. At Innovate Corp, those same kinds of engineers spent their time creating a new product that generated millions in revenue. They were working on innovation. The private cloud model forced LegacySys to make a massive, high-risk predictive bet. They had to guess future demand and pour concrete based on that guess. If they guessed too low, they'd miss the opportunity. If they guessed too high, they'd be saddled with millions in depreciating assets. Innovate Corp didn't have to guess. They used the public cloud's elasticity to match their resources to reality, in real time. When their massive training job was done, they didn't have 1,000 GPUs sitting idle burning power and money. They just turned them off. Their cost dropped back to near 0. It was a surgical strike, not a prolonged siege. This story illustrates the fundamental strategic difference. It's not about owning versus renting servers. It's about agility versus inertia. It's about whether your business operates at the speed of code or the speed of procurement. The public cloud isn't just a different way to host an application. It's a different way to think about building a business. It allows you to transform a huge capital expenditure risk into a manageable operational expense. It aligns your costs directly with your revenue generation. You pay for what you use when you use it. This is the offensive weapon of the public cloud, the ability to experiment, to fail cheap and fast. If Innovate Corp's experiment with the new model had failed, what would they have lost? A few $1,000s and a few days of developer time. For LegacySys, if they spend $20 million and the model turns out to be a dud or a competitor beats them to market, that is a catastrophic, potentially company-ending mistake. The fear of that mistake creates a culture of caution, a culture that says no to risky ideas. The public cloud creates a culture of experimentation, a culture that can say yes to 100 different ideas, knowing that 99 of them can fail without consequence, because the one that succeeds will change everything. This agility is the true revolution. It's how startups can compete with giants. It's how established companies can reinvent themselves. They are not just outsourcing their data center, they are outsourcing their limitations. They are shedding the physical constraints that have governed business for a century, and embracing a new model where the only limit is the ambition of their ideas. But this incredible power, this ability to summon a global supercomputer with a credit card, comes with its own siren song, its own hidden dangers. Because when you can move that fast, you can also run off a cliff at an incredible speed. The first sign of trouble isn't a blaring alarm or a system crash. It's a quiet email that lands in the finance department's inbox at the end of the month. An invoice. And the number on it is wrong. It has to be. It's 5, maybe 10 times what was projected. This is the first taste of the public cloud's dark magic. The illusion of cheap. The pay-as-you-go model feels like freedom. You're only paying for what you use. It's the ultimate efficiency. But what they don't print in the glossy brochures is that humans are terrible at predicting what they'll use. And the meter is always running. Think of it like this. You've been given a credit card with no limit to build your dream company. Every server you spin up, every gigabyte you store, every bit of data that leaves your network is a tiny little charge. A few cents here, a dollar there. In the beginning, it's exhilarating. Need to test a crazy new idea? Swipe. Need to handle a sudden surge in traffic? Swipe. You're moving at the speed of thought. But a developer forgets to turn off a massive test environment for a week. A data scientist runs a query that accidentally moves petabytes of data between regions. A small misconfiguration in your auto-scaling group creates a zombie army of servers, all mindlessly running up your bill. These aren't catastrophic failures. They're tiny paper cuts. But 1,000 paper cuts can leave you bleeding out. Suddenly, that operating expense, that beautiful, flexible monthly payment, has become a ravenous monster, devouring your budget, and you don't even know which of the 1,000 little services is holding the knife. The cloud providers will happily sell you tools to monitor your spending, of course. For a fee, you're paying them to figure out why you're paying them so much. It's a dizzying, frustrating spiral, and for many companies, it's the moment they realize the rented paradise has a very, very high price. But let's say you get the costs under control. You hire expensive consultants, you implement strict governance, you finally tame the beast. But then your competitor, running on a different public cloud, announces a massive price drop. Or a new cloud provider emerges with a revolutionary piece of technology that would give you a huge edge. You decide it's time to move. Simple, right? You just pack up your data and your applications and set up shop somewhere else. And this is when you discover the second, far more insidious danger. The one they never ever talk about. Vendor lock-in. You see, the public cloud isn't just a collection of virtual servers and storage. That's how they get you in the door. The real power, the real magic, is in their higher-level proprietary services. Things like Amazon's Lambda for serverless computing, or Google's BigQuery for data analytics, or Azure's Cosmos DB. These tools are incredible. They let you build things that would have taken an army of engineers just a few years ago. So you use them. You build your entire company's central nervous system on top of these amazing proprietary services. And it works beautifully, until you try to leave, and you realize you can't. Your applications aren't just running on the cloud, they are woven into the very fabric of that specific cloud. That amazing serverless function? Its code is completely dependent on that provider's unique ecosystem. That planet-scale database? There is no equivalent anywhere else. Moving isn't a matter of lifting and shifting your data. It's a matter of completely re-architecting and rewriting your core applications from scratch. It would take years. It would cost millions. You've built your house with custom-made bricks that only one company in the world sells. And they can change the price whenever they want. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. You are locked in. The initial freedom of the public cloud has slowly, insidiously morphed into a gilded cage. And even inside that cage, you are not as safe as you think. This leads us to the third great danger, the security paradox. The major cloud providers spend billions on security. Their data centers are physical fortresses, guarded by people with guns, biometric scanners, and layers of redundancy that would make a nation-state jealous. The cloud itself is secure, but your little corner of it? That's on you. It's called the shared responsibility model. Imagine the cloud provider is the landlord of a high-security apartment building. They are responsible for securing the perimeter, the lobby, the elevators. But you are responsible for locking the door to your own apartment. And this is where disaster strikes. Not with a sophisticated state-sponsored hack, but with a simple human error. A developer, rushing to meet a deadline, accidentally configures a storage bucket to be public instead of private. A single checkbox. And suddenly millions of your customer records, names, addresses, private information, are exposed to the entire internet for anyone to download. It happens every single week. You read the headlines. Massive data breach at Company X traced to misconfigured cloud server. The company's reputation is destroyed. They face staggering regulatory fines. Customers flee. And all because of one person, one click, in a complex interface with thousands of options. In your own private data center, you had a security expert, a network engineer who was the gatekeeper. In the cloud, every single developer with access to the console is suddenly a potential security liability. You've distributed the keys to the kingdom, and you're just hoping nobody leaves the door unlocked. Beyond the cost, the lock-in, and the security holes you create yourself, there's a final, more subtle erosion that takes place. A loss of control. A loss of sovereignty. When you're on the public cloud, you are a tenant. A very small tenant in a very, very large building. When things are going well, it's fantastic. But when they go wrong, you are powerless. A major region of your cloud provider goes down. It happens. A fiber optic cable is cut. A cooling system fails. A software update goes haywire. Suddenly, your entire business is offline. And what can you do? You can check their status page. You can file a support ticket and get in line behind 10,000 other companies. You are completely at the mercy of their engineers, their timeline, their priorities. Or consider performance. You don't have dedicated hardware. You're sharing a massive pool of resources with other customers. This is multi-tenancy. Most of the time it's fine. But what happens when your noisy neighbor, another company on the same physical server, suddenly starts a massive resource-intensive job? Your application's performance can suddenly degrade for no reason you can see or control. You're experiencing turbulence caused by a storm you can't even see. You've traded the certainty and control of owning your own hardware for the convenience of renting, but you've also inherited all the problems of having neighbors you can't choose and a landlord you can't fire. So we have this incredible engine of innovation, this public cloud that lets you move at the speed of light, but it's surrounded by financial quicksand, strategic traps, security minefields, and a fundamental loss of control. It's a Faustian bargain. Speed and agility in exchange for cost explosions, vendor lock-in, and shared risk. For a long time, it seemed like this was the only choice. You could have the slow, expensive, but controlled world of the private cloud, or the fast, flexible, but dangerous world of the public cloud. It felt like an impossible compromise between safety and speed, between ownership and convenience. But what if that's a false choice? What if you didn't have to choose between the fortress and the frontier? What if there was a way to combine the ironclad security and predictable cost of the private cloud with the elasticity and on-demand power of the public cloud? A way to get the best of both worlds. This is the world of hybrid cloud. And it's not some far-off futuristic concept. It's the strategic reality for a huge number of businesses today. The hybrid cloud is exactly what it sounds like. A mix, a combination of a private cloud, either on-premise or hosted, and one or more public cloud services, with sophisticated software and networking that allows them to communicate and share workloads. It's the ultimate compromise. It's the bridge between the fortress and the frontier. Think of it like this: your private cloud is your secure, custom-built headquarters. It's where you keep your crown jewels, your most sensitive customer data, your core financial systems, your secret intellectual property. It's optimized for your specific needs, it's predictable, and you have total control. But your headquarters has finite space. What happens when you need to host a massive global conference? You don't build a whole new wing onto your headquarters for a 3-day event. That would be insane. Instead, you rent out a massive convention center, the public cloud. You use its vast space, its resources, its global reach for the duration of the event. And when it's over, you pack up and go home to your headquarters. You only paid for what you used. That's the hybrid model in a nutshell. It's about creating a seamless, secure connection between your private fortress and the public frontier, so you can move workloads, data, and applications between them as your needs change. Now, you might also hear the term multi-cloud. It's important to know the difference. Multi-cloud simply means using services from more than one public cloud provider, like using AWS for its data analytics and Google Cloud for its machine learning tools. A company can be multi-cloud without being hybrid, but many hybrid strategies are also multi-cloud, creating a complex but incredibly powerful web of resources. For our purposes, the key idea is that bridge between private and public. So, how does this actually work in the real world? Let's go back to our online retail company. They run their day-to-day operations on their private cloud. It handles their inventory, their employee records, their financial transactions. It's stable, secure, and the costs are predictable. But then Black Friday is coming. They know they're about to get a tsunami of traffic that would overwhelm their private servers. In a purely private model, they'd have to spend a fortune on extra servers that would sit idle for 364 days a year. In a purely public model, they might be worried about running their core financial systems on a shared platform. With a hybrid approach, they practice something called cloud bursting. They set a threshold on their private cloud. When traffic hits, say, 80% of their capacity, the system automatically and seamlessly bursts the overflow traffic to the public cloud. New customer sessions, product page views, shopping cart requests, all of this gets handled by the elastic, pay-as-you-go resources of AWS or Azure. The public cloud scales up instantly to handle the massive spike. Then, when the sale is over and traffic returns to normal, it scales back down and the company stops paying for it. The core sensitive data, like the final credit card processing, might still happen back on the secure private cloud, but the massive, unpredictable load is handled by the public cloud. It's the perfect division of labor. Or consider a hospital. They have an absolute, non-negotiable legal requirement to protect patient health information under regulations like HIPAA. This kind of data is perfect for a private cloud, where the hospital's IT team can build a digital fortress around it with custom security controls and prove to auditors exactly where the data lives. But that same hospital also wants to build a new patient-facing mobile app for scheduling appointments. This app needs to be highly available, scalable, and accessible from anywhere. Building the infrastructure for that on their private cloud would be slow and expensive. So they use a hybrid model. The sensitive patient records stay locked down in the on-premise private cloud. The new mobile app is developed and hosted on the public cloud, where developers can use cutting-edge tools and scale it to thousands of users instantly. A secure, high-speed connection between the two allows the app to pull only the necessary non-sensitive data, like available appointment times, from the private system, without ever exposing the core patient records. Security and innovation, the fortress and the frontier. This strategy extends to disaster recovery, too. In the old days, if a company wanted to be safe from a fire or a flood, they had to build a complete duplicate data center in another city. A massively expensive undertaking. With a hybrid cloud, they can use the public cloud as their disaster recovery site. They continuously replicate their critical data and systems from their private cloud to a public cloud provider. If their main data center goes offline, they can fail over to the public cloud and be back in business in minutes or hours, instead of days or weeks. It's a far more cost-effective and flexible way to ensure business continuity. But, and this is a big but, the hybrid cloud is not a magic wand. It introduces its own set of challenges. The biggest one is complexity. You're no longer managing one environment. You're managing two, or even more. And they're fundamentally different. It's like managing a fleet of cars and a fleet of boats. They both provide transportation, but the tools, the skills, the maintenance, and the rules of the road are completely different. You need IT staff who are experts in both private virtualization and public cloud services. You need sophisticated management tools that can provide a single pane of glass to monitor performance and costs across both environments. Without that, you can easily lose track of what's running where, and your costs can spiral out of control. Connectivity is another huge hurdle. That bridge between your private and public clouds has to be a superhighway. It needs to be high-speed, low latency, and incredibly secure. A standard internet connection won't cut it. Companies often have to invest in expensive, dedicated private network connections to the public cloud providers to make the whole system work seamlessly. This adds cost and complexity to the setup. So, after all of this, what's the final verdict? Private versus public. The real difference isn't just about location, cost, or who owns the hardware. The real difference is a fundamental trade-off between control and convenience. The private cloud offers you ultimate control. You build the world exactly as you want it. You set the rules. You control your destiny. But that control comes at the cost of complexity, high upfront investment, and the responsibility of managing everything yourself. The public cloud offers you ultimate convenience. It's a world of infinite resources available at the click of a button. It gives you speed, agility, and massive scale. But that convenience comes at the cost of surrendering some control, dealing with unpredictable costs, and operating in a shared environment. The debate is no longer about which one is better. That's the wrong question. It's like asking whether a hammer is better than a screwdriver. The right question is, what are you trying to build? For a government agency handling classified intelligence, the absolute control of a private cloud is non-negotiable. For a brand new tech startup trying to build the next viral app, the speed and low entry cost of the public cloud is the only way to go. And for the vast majority of established businesses in the middle, the answer isn't or. It's and. The future is hybrid. It's about strategically placing different workloads in the environment where they make the most sense. It's about building that secure bridge, allowing you to keep your crown jewels in the fortress while still being able to explore and expand on the frontier. The ultimate goal isn't just to use the cloud, it's to use the right cloud for the right job at the right time. And understanding that distinction is the real difference.